Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamada Yapurnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namah. Chaitanyam Sarvagam Sarvam Sarvabhuta Guhashayam Yat Sarva Vishayatitam Tasmai Sarva Vide Namaha. The sixth verse. Dushechaya yadarudha Mukhachayeva darshane Pashyamstam pratyayam yogi Drishta atmeti manyate. The earlier verse said, Deha bhimanino dukkham na adehasya svabhavatah. Deha bhimanino dukkham. Dukkham is sorrow is for the one who is identified with the body, meaning both the gross and subtle body, and who takes body to be the self. Na adehasya svabhavatah. But the Atma is adeha, bodiless, unembodied. Svabhavatah, by nature, Vishnu Dukkham in Atma. And then one feels Dukkha only when identified with body, which identification creates a sense of limitedness, and that's how creates Dukkham. Adehasya Atma is adeha, or the one who is not identified with the body, either way. Swabhavat. And this that Atma is adeha is also seen in the dream, deep sleep. Or that one is not identified with the Atma is free from dukkha, also seen in the deep sleep. Tattvamiti uchyate drashehe tat prahanaya. Therefore, for elimination or removal of the identification body, the aspirant is taught Tattvamasi, you are the Atma, adeha Atma you are. You are the Atma, the self that is unembodied. Therefore, Svabhavataha, by nature, there is no dukkham in you. That's what the Mahavakya seeks to teach. The question was that even after gaining this knowledge that I am not the body, the dukkha still seems to persist. That means that na abhimanane bandhanam dukkhamiti. If dehabhimanam or identification of the body was the cause of dukkham, even after becoming free from the identification of his body, he has a gross body, this persistent feeling that I am Dukhi continues to remain. That means that Dukkhitvam, that I am Dukhi or unhappy, is not the result of Dehabhimanam, because it's not there now and still Dukkhitvam is there. Says Tad Vishishtatma Darsana, Darsana Avasatvat. Says no, even when one sees oneself as different from gross body, still one continues to identify or judge oneself by the antahkarana of the mind. Vishechaya, so mukhachaya eva darshane. In darshane, as in a mirror, mukhachaya, how the face seems to enter the mirror and appears to be conditioned by the mirror. If mirror has some spots or impure other defects, then the face also appears to possess those defects. The one doesn't have viveka. These defects belong to the mirror, and that the face, in spite of appearing to possess those defects, that defects do not belong to the face. That face is still free from all the defects. That viveka is there, then this reflection itself will not cause a problem. Then the face gets reflected in mirror is not a problem. That face appears to be influenced by the defects of mirror also is not a problem. What's the problem? Aviveka. Not being able to recognize the properties of mirror and the nature of face. So here in this case, mukhacha drashehe chaya yada rudha bhavati. So it is the nature of the mind or antahkarana to reflect the self. And here the antahkarana acts as a mirror. I look at myself. The only way that I look at myself is in the antahkarana, in the mind. And mind serves as a mirror. And therefore, in the reflection, all the attributes of the mind also get seen. Although all those attributes such as smallness, limitedness, distortion, impurity, all those things belong to the mind. And even when the self appears to be possessed of those attributes, the self is ever free. I am ever consciousness, free from all impurities. Ya atma apahata papma vicharaha vimrityu. So papa or jara, mrityu, all of these are the nature of the upadhi. When that viveka is not there, pashyam stam pratyam yogi, seeing that reflected itself in the mind, this yogi, the Tikakara explains about yogi. Yoga hasyasti, one who possesses yoga, or one who is joined without ignorance. So one who is joined with ignorance, united with ignorance. So yogi means here an ignorant person. And that ignorance called avaranam. So agrahanam, avaranam. So identified with the agrahanam, non-recognition of oneself, and therefore wrong recognition of oneself. An ignorant person, it's nobody's fault, everybody is innocent as far as ignorance is concerned, but this is what is happening. And due to lack of knowledge or viveka, one lumps the two things together the attributes of the mind and the face of the Atma and concludes that I am small, limited, dukkhi, etc. Meaning that in spite of knowing oneself free from or different from gross body, it still remains to be known that I am different from the subtle body of the mind. When there is not that, न सम्यक आत्मानं वाक्यात् अवगच्छतः. So even when he is told Tattvamasi, सम्यक ज्ञानं न अवगच्छति, he doesn't gain, he gains that I am tat, but which tat again only qualified by the mind. So even though he recognizes the self as a result of the Mahavakya, he doesn't see the self as simple consciousness. And therefore, dukkhitvadi anuvati upapadyate. It's quite tenable that one will continue to sustain this conclusion that I am dukkhi. Because the sense of limitedness does not go. It's not only gross body, the identification of gross body that creates sense of limitation, but the identification with the mind also creates limitation. And since that identification is not gone, therefore, the sense of limitation also is not gone. It is anuvritti. So dukkhitvadi kadachit pratibhastasya bhadita matrattvadi bhavaha. Dukkhitum also appears now and then. Kadachit pratibhastasya. So whenever that identification happens, then dukkhitum comes. When identification changes, something else will come. So that cannot be the nature of the self. Now continuing with the next verse. Ini savas ahankaram atmanam pashyan asamyakdarshi. When one looks upon oneself as that reflected self, which is ahankara, savasam ahankaram. Ahankara is the I notion is the product of identification with the upadhi. It's also a vritti or a thought form, and therefore that also reflects consciousness of the self. So you see savasam ahankara, you see limitedness or limited self, which is possessed of the reflected consciousness, which is enlivened by the reflected consciousness. So ahankara is enlivened, the ahankara is taken to be the self. Nothing unconscious can be taken to be the self. Even ahankara also, we just thought to be a vritti, would not be taken to be the self. But ahankara also possesses avasa. Therefore, due to the reflected consciousness, becomes enlivened and therefore is taken to be the self. Savasam ahankaram atmanam pashyan. Concluding is that is what I am. Not samyakdarshi. Therefore, he is not samyakdarshi. He doesn't have darshanam, the knowledge of Atma in the true sense as Atma truly is. Kastari samyakdarshi. If the one who takes ahankara of himself is not truly know, does not truly know the nature of the self, then who is the one who is samyakdarshi? Who is the one who has known the self correctly, perfectly? Ita apekshayam, if that apeksha is there, that's how the next verse is connected, that's the sangati. So the seventh verse says, Tancha mudhancha yadyanyam pratyayam vetti no drushehe sa eva yoginam preshthah netarasyanna samshayah. Tam cha, tam means here the ahankara. Mudham cha, the one who is mudha, aviveki, not, who does not separate the self from the non-self. Anyam pratyayam, or any other pratyaya, sukha dukkha, etc. No drushehe vetti, that all of these are not the nature of the drushi or the self. That ahankara, the moha, or any other sort is not the self. One who sees them as separate from the self, or sees separate self as separate from them. Seva yoginam preshtaha. That alone is preshtaha, is priyatama, is dearest to the yogis. Na itaraha, not the one who is aviveki. Na samshayaha, there is no, one should not enter in, there is no doubt. Oh, one should not, so either there is no doubt that he alone is the dearest to the yogis, or one should not entertain doubt about this. Tam upadibhutam pratyam ahankaram. So first is tam in the verse. What is tam? Upadibhutam pratyam ahankaram. That upadibhutam, or the nature of upadhi. Ahankara is the nature of upadhi, or this body mind sense complex, the identification with which creates the sense of I-ness. Mudham cha, mohatmakam, avivekam, muham, or mudham or moham. So avivekam, one sees the ahankara, aviveka, anyam cha, upadhi gatam, abhasam dukkhadikam va. Or one sees that chidavasa which is reflected on ahankara, or sees sukhitvam, dukkhitvam, all these different vrittis. All of these one sees. Yadi vetti, yadyanyam, yadi anyam. The yadi goes with vetti. If he knows. How does he know all this? How does he know the ahankara, the aviveka, the sukha dukkha vrittis? How does he know? If he knows them, how? Saksham eva idam sarvamiti, sakshatvena eva janati. All of this is sakshyam. Sakshi, the witness, sakshya witnessed. So all of this is sakshyam drishyam, is object, witnessed. So it is objectified, it is limited by the subject. No drushehe, sixth case, no drushehe, atmana, sakshana, sambandhi, sambandha shashti. That ahankara, moha, or sukha dukkha, any of these things are not connected to the self, is not connected to any of them. They don't belong to self, meaning self is no connection with them. They are all sakshya, drishya, object, element. Self is merely, I am merely illuminator, the witness. Even viveka mati is called viveka mati. One who possesses the mati, possessed of the viveka. So yoginam preshtaha, he alone is the preshtaha. The second meaning Shrestha, the most exalted among yogis, or the most dear to the yogis. Here also word yogi is used. In the earlier verse also yogi was there, here also yogi is there. Who is this yogi? The Tikakara says, Yujjate anena iti yoga tattvajnanam. So that by which one becomes yujjate, united with Paramatma. So that is the original meaning of the word yoga. That one becomes yoked or united with Paramatma, with the true self, is called yoga. So the means of joining the Jivatma with Paramatma as Aikya is called Tattva Jnanam. Different ways you can explain. Yujyate aneneti yoga, that by which one is united with the self, that is Tattva Jnanam. So yoga is explained as Tattva Jnanam. Yogi, the one who possesses that tad vidyate yesham te yoginah. So those who possess Tattva Jnanam, the wise people are called yoginas. Here, earlier was yogi was explained as an ignorant person. Yogi is united with this ignorance and aviveka. Here yogi is one united with viveka. Tesham preshta priyatama samyak darshi ityartha. His dearest to the yogi is meaning samyak darshi. He is the one who has the true knowledge of the self. Or Shrestha is the most exalted among the yogis. No, itaraha, not the other one. Purvokta, Sahankar, Atmadarshi. The earlier one, who saw the Atma all right, but along with Ahankara, meaning thought Ahankara to be Atma, he is not dearest to the yogi. The Samshaya. So Tikakara has explained in the Samshaya is Samshaya atra na kartavya. In this case, one should not have any doubt at all that he is the most exalted among yogis. This Samyak Darshi is the most exalted among yogis. One should not have any doubt about that. See, if you have doubt, this is the goal. If you possess doubt about that really is he the best or there is something better than that? Is he really best or not? If those questions are there, then this is your goal, that this is the kind of yogi that you have to become. If whether he is most exalted among yogis, if that is a doubt there, then you are not clear what your goal is. You know that this is the most exalted state, and this is what the goal is, then all your efforts also will be very properly directed and made. Agnyascha shraddhadhanascha samshayatma vinashyaditi bhagavad vachanarityartha. Ignorant, not having shraddha, and worse, having doubt, doubting everything. Vinashyati. So the idea is that as far as pramana is concerned, Shraddha, that what the pramana says is what is. Because with my intellect I cannot judge or determine what the truth is. With my intellect, what I have judged in fact is false. Or let us say that I am willing to question my own conclusions based on what the Pramanam says. That's called Shraddha. And that is there when I have no question about the authenticity or ingenuity of Pramanam. Because this is Atindriya Vishaya. There is no way that I can on my own determine the nature of self from my experiences or even from reasoning. From reasoning, one can only come to conclusions like what the previous verses say, that by reasoning either I am identified with the body and I am Dukhi, or I take the reflected self, Ahankara, as a self and again remain Dukhi. So I do not have the means, the way I am accustomed to knowing things. The same way I continue to attempt to know the self, and thereby I take some object as the self, something that is drishya, that is self. Like the reflection of the self in the mind. There is no way for me to determine that what I am doing is wrong. And therefore, there must be that shraddha or trust in the pramanam. This is pramanam. Say yoginam preshta. If you have doubt there, then it will not, this conclusion or this nishchaya, so this determination, conviction will not be settled in your mind. Before you can achieve even an object, a goal, there will be conviction that that is the goal. And this is the path. If that conviction is, you keep on doubting, is it this, is that, and so forth, then you will be lost. So therefore, that this is the goal and this is the reality, should not be doubted. Nanyam gunebhyah kartaram yada drashtanupashyati gunebhyasya param veti. So Lord Krishna says, Nanyam gunebhyah, all kartrutva belongs to guna. So he recognizes that. Gunebhyasya param veti, one also sees one, the self, that is param, separate from the gunas. The witness of the gunas, eliminate the gunas. Madbhavam sodhigachyati. Continuing, sarvasya lokasya atmatvena bhasanapi ahankara ched anatmatvena tyajyate. The question is, everybody takes self to be so. The doubt is, everybody finds the sun to be rising and setting. Not I am not the only one. How can everybody be wrong? Similarly, sarvasya lokasya atmatvena bhasamanopi ahankara, that shines as the self for everybody. Everybody takes ahankara to be self. You say ahankara is anatma. So anatmatvena tyajyate. Therefore, you give up the identification or judging that ahankara as atma. And therefore, let go. Meaning, give up the identification of the ahankara also. It's called tyaga. So when you are not identified with ahankara, do not give real to ahankara, then it may not remain in your consciousness also. If ahankara is let go from your consciousness, finally, tada tadanyasya tvam padarthasya adarsanat. When I am told tattvamasi, that thou art, I don't see anything now. When ahankara also is no more the object of my awareness and nothing remains in the awareness, and therefore, who am I? What is it that I am told is the self? I don't see anything. Tada tannasya tvam padarthasya adarsanat. I am looking for tvam padartha. I am looking for myself and I don't see. Because ahankara, which I thought to be self, also has been let go. Then nothing remains now to claim as a self. Tattvamasya vakyasya niralammanatva apatti. Then tattvamasya adi mahavakya, which says you are tat. I don't see anything. So what is it that is called tvam here? So which? So I thought ahankara is I, and the Upanishad says I am Brahman, therefore ahankara is Brahman. This is how the tvam-pada was there. I knew what tvam-pada is, and therefore I thought I understood what the Upanishad says. What I thought of it tvam-pada, ahankara is no more than, then who is that tat? Who is Brahman? There is no tvam remaining, therefore tattvamasya vakyasya niralambanatva apatti. There is no alambanam, no object. Alambanam means support, ashraya. Here vishaya. There is no vishaya, there is no tvam at all left, and therefore, who is tat? Tattvamasi, who is that Tvam who is Tat or Brahman? Vakya Tattvamasi has no basis at all because there is no Tvam. And so who is Tvam? Who is Brahman? Iti ashankya ahankaradi viviktasya. So slowly that the teacher is leading us to the nature of knowledge and everything. Ahankaradi viviktasya tvamarthasya shrutyaiva upadishatvat upapaditatvat maevam. You cannot, from your experience, you cannot conclude that there is no tattvam, there is no Atma, because you do not see. That is not the criterion to conclude there is no Atma. Because ahankaradi vivektasya tvamarthasya shrutyaiva upapaditatvat. Shruti herself tells you about Atma who is separate from ahankara and others. Ahankaradi viviktasya. Ahankara, deha, ahankara, all up to deha, that Atma is different from them. Tvamarthasya, that is the meaning of Tvam. For you, when Tattvamasi, Shvetakavi said, what is you? It's not body, mind, sense, even up to ahankara. That means there is something in the mind of Shruti. You may think that nothing is left to be called Tvam or I. But Shruti says you are Brahman, so there must be that you. Shrutyaiva upaditatvad. Shruti also with reason explains how you are not the gross body, you are not the sense organs, you are not the prana, you are not the mind. Upapaditatvat. Thus, with logical, with reasoning, the Shruti says that all drishya, you are drashta, you are witness, you are not that. And that you are different from all the drishya, this is how the Shruti says. We cannot say that there is no Tvam. What does Shruti have in mind? Looks like there is nothing left for the Shruti to call Tvam. He says, no, Shruti says you are the Brahman. And therefore, Shruti has something, that is Tvam. So, the next verse is Vijñāte yastu vijñāta sattvam-ityuchyate yatah sasyādanuvastasya tatonyo nubhavo mrusha. Vijñāte yastu vijñāta. The only vijñāta vijñāti is what Shruti means by Tvam. So Shruti has in mind what is Tvam. Vijñāte vijñāta. The knower of the knowing is what the Shruti means by Tvam. Sasyādano. If that is recognized as a self, then that is the true knowledge. Tatanya anubhava. Other than that, if you recognize the self as anything else, it is mrusha, it is a wrong thing. It's a wrong conclusion. So the Tikakara has quoted from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Nahi vijñātuhu vijñāte viparilopo vidyate avinashitvat. So vijñāti remains. Vijñāte viparilopa. Here the word vijñāti is different from two statements are made here. What does the first statement say? Vijñāti, the knowing, vijñātu of the knower. The knowing of the knower never suffers cessation. Avinashita, because knower is not avinashi. The knower comes and goes. There is no knower in deep sleep state. There is knower in waking, but not in deep sleep. Therefore, that is not avinashi. The knowing of the knower is avinashi. The consciousness is avinashi. There is no cessation of consciousness. even when the knower is not there. Second is also from Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, an earlier one. Na vijñāte vijñātāram vijānīyāha iti. When Sri Jajñalika was told that you promised that you will show me the self, show me. Like you take a cow with a horn and show this is cow, similarly show me the self. Says, I'm sorry. I cannot show you, nor can you see it in that sense that is you can see a cow. The vijñāte vijñātāram vijānīyāha. Again, vijñāte of the knowing, you cannot know the knower of the knowing. The knowing, so here knowing is different from the knowing of the previous statement. There vijñāti meant consciousness. Here vijñāti means the vritti jnana, the knowing. It is Shruta. So second Shruti is talked about by the Tikakara. Not the first one. Here. It is Shruta Shasthyantiya Shabda Nirdishtayaha. So what is the second? Vijñātehe Vijñā. What is the sixth case? Vijñātehe. Shasthyantiya Shabda Vijñātehi. Or with the sixth case Vijñātehe. So that what is that Vijñāti? Buddhi vritti rupayaha Vijñātehe. So here Vijñāti is a knowledge, buddhi vritti. You cannot know the knower of this knowledge. Buddhi vritti you can know, but you can never know the one who knows that buddhi vritti. The knower of the mind, knower of the thought cannot be known. Iti anityayaha vijñāt. So that vijñāti, buddhi vritti is anitya. Keeps changing. Not only changing, but then it ceases to be there in deep sleep state. So it is impermanent. So of the vijñāti or the buddhi vritti or the cognitive knowledge which is changing or impermanent, the vijñāta, the knower of that, the illuminator is permanent, is eternal. Nitya vijñapti rupena jnātāram. The knower of that knowing or buddhi vritti, who is he? Nitya vijñapti is not a knower in the primary sense. So even though we say a knower of the knowing, that knower of the knowing is not knower in primary sense, nitya vijñapti rupena, that knower is merely vijñapti, merely consciousness, which shines, illumines. So that is a knower, the devoid of knowerness. Therefore, now the knower of the knowing cannot be known because that knower is not available for knowledge. What can be known is known by the mind or the buddhi, which always must be something that is qualified. Unqualified consciousness cannot become the object of knowledge in a conventional sense. Not that I cannot know myself as consciousness, but I cannot know consciousness as I know this buddhi vritti or ghatapata. The Upanishad, all along. So nitya vijñapti rupena jnātāram, that jnāta, the knower of the knowing, is nitya vijñapti, is the vijñapti, the consciousness which does not suffer cessation, as said in the previous one. So previous statement is made to say that there is a self which is vijñapti, consciousness, which is nitya, which does not suffer cessation, and that cannot be known by the knower. As long as you remain the knower, so long you can never know your true nature. Tum vijaniyaha, you cannot know that. Iti. So the question was, when your ahankara also, knower also is recognized or dismissed as an Atma, then no knower remains, nothing to know remains, then who is Atma? So first we said that this is not the way to know yourself. The way you know the thoughts, etc., is not the way to know yourself. Because that self, the knower, is Nitya Vijnapti Swarupa, of the nature of Vijnapti, consciousness, unchanging, changeless consciousness, just illuminated, just is. Then Sasyat Anubhava Tasya. So see, Vijñāte Yastu Vijñāta. Going to the verse now. So because the word Vijñāti etc. is explained with the reference to Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, because this is the word, these are the passages that this particular verse refers to. So Vijñātehe, Vijñāta, Vijñāti, the words used in the verse number 8 come from this statement of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Vijñāta yastu vijñāta, going to the verse now. Yastu vijñāte vijñāta. One on the other hand who is the knower of the knowing, the knower of the known, who is the vijñāta rupa, avishaya bhuta, sarvasakshi. Even though it's called vijñāta. Vijñāte vijñāta, vijñāti means buddhi vritti. Vijnana, knower of the buddhi vritti. One who is called so-called knower, but not knower in the primary sense. Vijnata rupa avishaya bhuta sarvasakshi pratipannaha. So one who recognizes sarvasakshi as avishaya bhuta, which is not the object or which can be objected or objectified. Nature of Vijñāta, nature of the knower, which is avishaya, unobjectified, cannot be objectified, the very subject. Sarvasakshi, the witness, illuminate of everything. In short, the notion of Vijñāta or knower also is dropped. So not only you drop the ahankara as a self, but finally also let go the knower. So far the knower carried out the negating process. After negating what can be negated, namely ahankara, then you have the negator also. Yena tyajasi tat tyaja. And therefore avishaya bhuta sarvasakshi pratipannaha. I'm just consciousness, not even vijñāta, the content of the knower, just the knowing, the consciousness, just is, which shines. You can call it sarvasakshi, illuminating everything. Pratipannaha. Saha sarvāvāsaka eva tvamiti tvam shabdena tatmasi vakya uchyate. That Sakshi, just the self that is, the consciousness that is and that shines, is what is referred to by the word Tvam in the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. The Ahankaratmadaya, the word Tvam in the Tattvamasi does not mean Ahankara, etc. It means that very illuminator. Illuminator also is a word. No qualification or description can be given, but then these are the closest words, which again by Lakshana Vritti help us to know the self. So Sakshi also is not the primary, meaning of the self, or even self also. Every word excludes something else. Sakshi excludes Sakshya. Self excludes non-self. Whatever word you use excludes something, because in relation to some other word, a word is always blind. We are accustomed to know the meaning of a word only with reference to other words. So every word only can reveal something relative and not unrelative, unrelated. That's the reason why a word cannot mean the self who is unrelated, asanga. So even the primary meaning of the word jnata also is dropped. Na ahankaratmataya. So tattvamasi means that tvam, the consciousness, not ahankara, etc. Yatah yasmat, since this is what the Upanishad means in the Mahavakya tattvamasi by the word tvam, yatah yasmat tata tam avalambya tattvamasyadi vakya pravrutte. Don't think that there is void when the ahankara goes away, nothing is left. The subject is very much left, but not the subject opposed to object. So the subjectness also goes from the subject. The content of subject is left because it is permanent, it is eternal. Viparilopo na vidyate, it never suffers cessation, can never be negated. And so the Mahavakya Tattvamasi has an entity which is referred to by Tvam, not that there is no entity left. Tatah tam avalambya tattvamasi vakya pravrutte. Keeping that in mind, Mahavakya Tattvamasi is uttered. Therefore, na niralamana pashinka avakasha, meaning there is, when it says Swami, it doesn't mean that nothing is left. By Tvam is nothing there. Therefore, Tattvamasi Mahavakya is nothing you talk about, but there is no Tvam. He says, no, this is Tvam. Keeping that in mind, the word Tvam is used in the Mahavakya Tattvamasi. Sasyad anubhavas tasya, second line says, tasya tvam padarthasya sayeva shutrikta prakara anubhava samyag anubhava syat. That means that word tvam, which is what the Shruti says, the tvamness also is not there. Tvam means you. What you are means I, even that I also, that I-ness also goes away. So I excludes non-I. The I excludes you. Therefore that I, which is exclusive, the truth cannot be exclusive at all, is all inclusive. Therefore, there the idea of that I also goes away. Tasya tvam padarthasya seva shutyukta prakara anubhava. So anubhava, again knowledge, call it experience, knowledge, recognition, seeing. In keeping with what the Shruti means by the word tvam, that anubhava is samyak syat, samyak anubhava syat. That alone can be called the, not what you have, that I am ahankara, that's not samyak anubhava. When I am shunya, that also is not samyak anubhava. That I am very much full and complete. Not shunyatvam is not left, completeness is left. And completeness is always there, unfortunately. As long as the object is there, so long there is habitual identification, habitual judging myself. Therefore, that has to be dropped. When they stop judging myself based on what I see, there is no problem. But right now, my problem is keep on judging myself based on what I see or what I think. So that is also not there. There is nothing to judge myself with, and all I am is just conscious. I recognize that, and that is the true knowledge. Tatahanya anubhava mrusha. The verse says, Tatanya buddhi tastha avasa vishishta rupate anubhava. Taking buddhi, all the avasa, reflection in buddhi, and so taking myself to be that ahankara or enlivened ahankara, that is mrusha, mithya, dhyasa. It is false. Result of adhyasa or superimposition. So that is not the right knowledge. Leading us to right knowledge and process of knowledge in a very subtle, systematic, step by step way. Nanu avishayascedatma shrutya nivedyate. If Atma is avishaya, is not object, is purely subject, meaning There is no Vishayatvam in Atma, there is no objectness in the Atma at all. There is no objectness and there is no subjectness also, we should know, because subjectness also is only with reference to objectness. So every word is with reference to some other word. And this word is a very powerful thing because the word immediately creates a concept in our mind. Yato vacho. Therefore, they ultimately, even though through the word also, what is sought to be conveyed is what is not the immediate meaning of the word. That's the miracle that takes place for a wise person. Nanu avishayaschet atma shrutya nevedyate. If Shruti is only presenting before us Atma, the Avishaya, which is not an object, subject, Kasam tari tasyan, then how can you experience it? How can you know it? Shruti presents Atma as non-knowable. Avishaya is non-knowable. Vishaya is something knowable, objectified. Shruti presents Atma as unknowable, then how can there be anubhava, knowledge of Atma? Anubhava rupatvat tasya nanubhava apeksha. Our answer is that, hey, it is of the nature of anubhava. Where anubhava means consciousness, because with all experience takes place. Therefore, you don't need to experience that. You are its very self, so you don't need to experience therefore. No anubhava apeksha. There is no apeksha or need of anubhava with reference to Atma. If that's our answer, then again the Purvapakshi continues. Anyatra anubhavya anubhavayoho bhedadarshanaadi rupatvat. Now this is the uniqueness of the knowledge of Atma. But we have an orientation of knowledge, which is what we bring, here and apply in case of Atma also. So therefore the question arises. Anyatra anubhavya anubhavayoho bhedadarshanaad iti. Yes, so in case of any all other knowledge, there is anubhavya, there is something to be experienced, and there is an experiencer, and there is experience. So in every other, what we know, what is our experience is that the experiencer, anubhavi experienced. Anubhava, experience, and then experiencer. Bhedadarshanaat, all these three are known to be separate from each other. So, anubhava takes place only with references to duality. We have never known any anubhava which doesn't involve the duality. Idyashankya jada ajarattvabhyam visheshopatte mayavamiti. What is jada and what is ajada? Vishesha is that. So far, your anubhava or experience or knowledge is always centered upon what is jada or achetana or that which needs to be eliminated. We are talking about ajada, chetana, which is the nature. Therefore, you cannot apply the same model or the same rule, the same setup is not there. For jada or what is unconscious, it always requires to be eliminated by consciousness, and therefore this elimination. No, this is going to there. We set up something that is jadam or achetanam or to be eliminated. But that cannot apply to the very eliminator. So we are talking about a different kind of an entity here, understand? Therefore, your conclusions which are derived from your day-to-day experience involving jada or achetan cannot be applied here. Vishesha upatte, therefore there is a vishesha, something different here. With reference to what is illumined or jada, here we are talking about the chetana, and therefore there is something different here. Therefore, mayavam. No apeksha is true, but then it is not what you mean here. That you cannot experience Atma, or Atma cannot be known. It cannot be known in the conventional sense, but not that it cannot be known. So the next verse is, in the previous verse, the previous page, Drishyarupe sada nitye darshana darshane mayi katham syatam tato nanyah ishyate anubhavastatah. Drushi rupe, mai, nitya, sada nitya drushi rupe, that which is always nitya. Mai, I who is always nitya in me, darshana darshane katham syatam. How can there be darshanam or adarshanam? Darshanam, knowing and not knowing, both of these apply to Drushya. The Drushya is seen or not seen. That, how can that apply in Drushi? In the very self? So you are talking about darshanam, adarsanam, etc. with reference to a Drushya. But here talking about the Drushi, means it's the content of a drashta. Tato na anyahishyate anubhava tatah tato. So therefore, another kind of experience is not recognized here, necessary. See, Tikakar explains, Yasya swasattaya or swasattayam is the second reading, prakasha vyavichara. So one who is there exists like Ghatapata, but prakasha of the illumination is not there. One that exists but does not illumine. You follow? So swasattayam prakasha vyavichara. The existence is there but the illumination is not there. That's called vyavichara. Meaning that there is now an absence of consciousness or prakashatvam, shining, illumining, even though existence is there. They don't always go together. Atma is, shines and everything, but anatma is but does not shine. Tasya agantuka jnanasthapekshatvad. So that entity such as Ghatapata, which exists but does not illumine itself. Now how can that be known? That can be known only when it is illuminated. So when the illuminator is there, a Ghata is known. When the illuminator is not there, Ghata is not known. Even the entities here also are illumined. When the light is there, the light goes away, then I can't see them. So Ghata can be seen when Ghata is illumined by consciousness through eyes, let's say. And when the attention goes to other object, or when you start hearing, then that is not there, then the Ghata is. Therefore, prakasha vyavichara. When the entity like Ghatapata is different and does not shine on its own, then it is conditional whether it will shine or not. It will shine only when it is illumined by consciousness, will not shine. Otherwise, the prakasha vyavichara. Thus, agantuka jnanasthapekshatvad. Therefore, it is jnanam, its knowledge only is when agantuka is coming and going. When illumined, you can know, not illumined, do not know. Objects are seen when they are illumined, not seen, not illumined. So anya jnana agama apaya nibandhane darshana darshane syatam. Therefore, so anya jnana agama apaya. So in this case of Ghatapata, the jnanam, the consciousness or light which illumines them is different from Ghatapata. Because Ghata is but doesn't shine. So its shining is due to something else. When something else illumines that ghata, then ghata can be known, then darshanam is there. When that does not illumine like the eyes, then the adarshanam is there. So darshanam, adarshanam, both of them apply to what? Apply to the inert, the unconscious, like ghatapata. So first of all, darshana, adarshana, where do they take place? They take place with reference to that which is jadam, paraprakashyam, achetanam, which is there but which does not have capacity to illumine itself, which needs something else, consciousness to illumine. When illumine, it shines, darshanam is there. Not illumine, adarsanam is there. So darshanam, adarsanam business can only apply to that which is jadam, achetanam, unconscious. Coming to the verse now, sada drushtirupe jnana swarupe mai, but I am not jada. I am and I shine also. So shining, illumination also, existence is accompanied by illumination. In case of ghatapata, existence is not accompanied by illumination. In case of myself, the existence is accompanied by illumination. That here, aham is never devoid of illumination. Existence, illumination always are together. In ghata, even though existence, illumination is not there, therefore illumination agantukam is now and then, so there can be darshanam, adarsanam. Sada dushrupe jnana swarupe mai satye nitye, and that illumination is nityam, because that's the very nature. Nirapeksha sattake, the illumination in case of ghatapata is asapeksham, is dependent upon an illuminator. Here it is nityam, and therefore does not require something else to illuminate. So if Puja Swami says, you require pramanam to know anything other than yourself. In case of the colors, you require eyes. In case of sound, you require ears, and so on and so forth. To know anything in the world, you require pramanam, a means of knowledge. Don't need pramanam to know yourself, because it is self-illuminating. Nitya means anya nirapeksha satta. What is nityam? Anya nirapeksha sattakam, that which does not require anything else to provide satta or illuminate the satta. Swarupatah jnanatascha nitya. That Atma is nitya by nature, and also Atma is nitya, always illumined. Not so. Swarupatah ghata also is nitya, but not illumined. So Atma Swarupa Jnanatascha nitya. You can't call Sat, as Sat ghata is nitya, not as a name and form, but that Sat is not illumined. So Swarupatah Jnanatascha nitya, Atma is nitya by nature, self, and also Jnanataha by way of consciousness, shining, illumining. Iti yavat. Darshana, darshane, katham syadam. How can we darshanam? And how can we darshanam? Yes, conventional darshanam requires drashta drushya darshanam. That cannot be. But that doesn't mean it is adarshanam, because it is always self-shining, and therefore it can never not be not known or not experienced. Katham syatam is not a question, it is an akshara. Na katham api ityartha means it cannot be. Tataha tasmat karanat. So one is tataha tasmat karanat, other is tataha, so swarupat. So that other tataha is the fifth case, So tataha tasmat karanat tataha swarupat anya anubhava na ishyate diya. Therefore you do not require an anubhava. For a ghatapada you require anubhava. For the self you do not require anubhava, because it is very anubhava, devoid of this duality of the drashta drushya darshanam. Therefore tataha swarupa anya anubhava na ishyate. Swarupa, by very other than your nature, there is no anubhava or experience other than your nature. You are the nature of experience. All experience is for revealing that anyway. It culminates into that. The point is that the normal rule that we apply to knowing these ghatapata is not applicable, nor is it necessary here, because you are self-illumined, self-shining. Om. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutrabhashya Krutau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah. Ishvaro Gururatmeri Murti Bheda Vibhagine Vyomavadvyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Hari Om.